What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Pizza Buffet right here, live on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network and powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook. I'm Rob Pizzola, sporting the mustache very briefly. It's been a long morning. Had a wine and cheese event last night. I'm suffering. Who knew that a 36-year-old cannot eat a month's worth of cheese in one night and get away with it? But I'm here for the next hour, breaking down today's NFL sides and totals, top to bottom, rotation number order. If you're new here, I just have to say, same thing I usually say every week. I don't have an edge at this time. It's very likely that you don't have an edge at this time either. I don't mean to diminish anyone. My edge betting in NFL comes earlier in the week. Comes on Tuesdays, comes on Wednesdays, comes on Fridays with injury reports after practices. Sunday mornings, very difficult to beat. Don't believe me? You have the sharpest sportsbooks in the world, including Pinnacle, taking 100K on sides right now. Why are they taking 100K on sides? Well, it's because they're very confident that you're not going to beat their NFL sides at this point. Totals, money lines, 50K. Why are they taking that? Because they're very confident you're not going to beat their totals and money lines at this point. There's very select few people in the world that are going to win consistently year after year betting Sunday morning NFL. I would implore you to try to bet earlier in the week. If you do want to tail my picks on this show, you can do it. But understand that I've been doing this now for several years, and my ROI is negative 2.7% on this show in the morning. So it's very important to let you know that. Please play responsibly. You might watch all sorts of other content on Sundays where your host is telling you, I got this lock, I got this big bomb banger, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's all BS. Because at the end of the day, if they did have locks on Sunday morning, they wouldn't be producing content. Neither would I. If I could wake up on Sunday morning, hop out of bed, bet the board at 100K a pop, there'd be no need for me to ever produce content going forwards. So just want to make that known for everyone out there. Good morning to all the nails who are already in the chat. Appreciate all of you guys who join me every single week here on Pizza Buffet, but also for the rest of our content here on Forward Progress. Talk about getting those early numbers. Well, we'll do that tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time, myself and Clive Bixby, where we'll look through next week's board and get those early numbers for you. Make sure you're subbed here on Forward Progress, and make sure if you do enjoy the content that I put out, you like the video as well. As a general reminder, the way this is going to work, I'm going to bring up betstamp on the screen, go through every single game. I preach line shopping here on Forward Progress. It's one of the most critical aspects of sports betting. I would never consider betting without Pinnacle being one of my sports books because of their everyday competitive odds. You'll see it yourself when we bring them up on screen, but oftentimes, side, money line, total, they're going to have the best price in market. So make sure you bet smart, bet Pinnacle, your trusted sportsbook for the past 25 years. If you're in Ontario and you're going to sign up for Pinnacle, use code HAMMER, as it does help support us here at Forward Progress and the Hammer Betting Network. You must be 19 plus, not available in the US. And as always, again, please play responsibly. Sunday morning NFL is a challenge. All right, let's get right into it. Last week was 3-0. Again, I don't expect that to continue. The previous week, I didn't win a single bet. So we're at all sorts of extremes now. Hoping for a good week, but again, naturally tough on Sundays. The easiest way to improve as a sports bettor, use multiple sports books, get the best odds. I'd recommend using an odds comparison tool like Betstamp. Betstamp compares odds across every sports book for games, futures, even player props if that's what you bet. Save time and money by checking Betstamp before you bet. Download the app today. You see it up on screen right now, and I'm going to go through games one by one here. I'll do a quick refresh. I'm not in rotation number order here, so let me just quickly set that for my display settings. Sort games by rotation number and head back. All right, let's go. Saints and Colts. Game number one on the board. Let's get some winners. This is not going to be a game where we get some winners. So the market has kind of settled in here anywhere between 2 and 2.5 in favor of New Orleans. So one-way action all week towards the New Orleans Saints. You'll see Pinnacle at 44 right now. If you like the under in the game, definitely the best price in market on Pinnacle, which 44 is a key number here. I talked about this, not to live in the past with Clive Bixby last Sunday night, where I expected New Orleans to close as a small favorite here. And this is kind of the case that we're getting. At this number, there's not really a whole lot to do. There's a little bit of injury information that's causing the shift over the course of the week. New Orleans is going to get their right tackle, Ryan Ramczyk, back in the lineup. Juwan Johnson at tight end doesn't make a big difference. But even the players that were listed as questionable on the Saints injury report, all expected to play. On the Indy side of thing, you do have some key injuries with Braden Smith being out again at right tackle. Juju Brent's out with a quad injury at corner. They're already thin at corner. It was one of the weakest positions on the team heading into the year. Dallas Flowers is on IR. So all of that matters. Now, I'm slightly optimistic for Derek Carr in this game. I mean, put that on my tombstone. Based off of the Colts' defensive tendencies, the Colts play a lot of cover three, the highest rate of cover three in the league, almost 60%. Derek Carr's not good against any defense, but if you look at his numbers by defensive coverage, he's significantly better against cover three than any other defense this season. He's basically been a league average quarterback against cover three and much worse against everything else. Tons of zone, obviously. Derek Carr, league average against zone, not very good against man. The Colts aren't going to play a ton of man with the injuries at cornerback. I can say the same thing for Minshew in terms of the matchup. Saints play a lot of man coverage. I mentioned this in last week's video where I thought Indy would have a good offensive performance against Cleveland because they play a ton of man coverage, and Minshew has been very good against man in his career. So there's some optimism there. But for some reason, Minshew, it's not for some reason. I mean, he's a backup quarterback for a reason, but he can't protect the ball right now. Do the Saints have a Myles Garrett? They don't. But we've seen back-to-back weeks now where Gardner Minshew just cannot protect the ball, and that's an issue. Carr might stink, but for the most part, he's not turning it over a lot, whereas Minshew's giving the other team possessions. Pretty good number in the game, in my opinion. If you had to ask me to pick at the current market price, I would go with the Colts. I kind of have this in the 1.5 range. I think there's a big coaching mismatch here as well with Steichen against Dennis Allen. For those that don't know, I'm not the biggest Dennis Allen fan. But aside from that, just not a whole lot to do here. Maybe the mustache is a sign, though. Maybe a mustache is a sign that it might be Minshew season today. All right. Yeah, New Orleans, Indy, who do you take in a spread pool? It depends on what the spread is, but my fair line in the game is 1.5 New Orleans. And for those who want to use them in a teaser, the Colts at home, don't hate that either. Don't hate that either. You get to bring the Colts up through 3, key number, up through 7, key number. Total in the game, 44, fairly low, not a super high variance game. I don't mind that one bit. Game number 2, Jags and Steelers. Jags pretty much 2.5 across the board in market. Anything that's not 2.5 is kind of just like a derivative of the 2.5 number. Total down to 40.5. Pinnacle holding a 41 on the board here. This sole 41. Again, if you're an under better, want the under, that's going to be the best spot to play the game. Few things of note, weather being one. I'll talk about weather in whatever games deserve to, where weather's a factor. We're going to get rain in this game. It seems like most of the rain's going to come early on in the game. So that's kind of the weather impact. Looking at the winds, doesn't seem significant to me at all. So just rain in the early going. As the game goes on, it eases up a little bit more. Maybe some live betting possibilities depending on how the weather impacts the game. For Jacksonville, I don't have full visibility into who is playing and who's not playing right now. Trevor Lawrence is going to play with the knee injury. We know Zay Jones is out. Devon Hamilton, their nose tackles coming off of IR. He had that back injury, but we still have Tyson Campbell unknown. Haven't seen an announcement. If someone else has, let me know. Brandon Scherf on the offensive line. So those are kind of key. Pittsburgh secondary, lots of injuries at corner, all expected to play. Levi Wallace, Joey Porter, James Pierre, who's like a dime corner or whatever. So nothing that's like a major impact here. I think this is kind of a fair price. If I was just using this season's stats only, I can make a pretty strong case for Jacksonville. But the weather, along with some very rough quarterback splits for Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, make this a stay away. The blitz numbers for Trevor Lawrence this year are staggering. Like, he's been blitzed 61 times. His EPA per play is negative 0.31. That's the fourth worst of any quarterback in the league when he's blitzed. And the Steelers do this a lot. They send extra pressure. They're the sixth highest blitz rate team in the entire league. So that's a little bit concerning for me. On the other side of the ball, I still don't know about Pittsburgh's offense, just as of yet. They're probably closer to last week's game than they had been with their metrics earlier in the year where they struggled. And that's because Deontay Johnson is back in the lineup for them. So I think the Steelers' offense is underrated. It looks a lot better when it's Deontay Johnson one side, George Pickens the other, than George Pickens wide receiver 1, Allen Robinson wide receiver 2. That's kind of disastrous. The issue I have here for the Steelers' offense as well is that Kenny Pickett really wants to turn the ball over when he's blitzed as well. This is a game between two teams that love to send pressure. The Jags send pressure at the fourth highest rate in the league. And when I say pressure, I mean an extra man or multiple extra men. Kenny Pickett, when he's not blitzed, his turnover-worthy play rate is 1.9%. When he is blitzed, it's 5.4%. Big differences here. Ultimately, very small lean to the Jags. I already see someone in the chat mentioning the voodoo magic for Tomlin. We all know, I mean, we can say it's a luck factor. I don't know how many times we have to see it, though, happen before maybe it's not luck. I don't know what it is. But this has historically been a very good spot under Mike Tomlin, especially home underdog role. Granted, it's very few points, but he seems to get his team up for these types of games. So, tough one. I'm kind of like in between a 2.5 and 3. Slight lean to the Jags. Never really got there. Injury report was always a concern for me. And, I mean, I'd be ignorant to say that I'm not completely scared of betting against Tomlin in these types of spots. Although it's becoming more and more popular and known now, and you wonder how much that plays into the line. If it plays into the line at all. All right. Game number 3 on the list here. Just a reminder to everyone out there. Again, I'm going to go through every game on the board. I'll skip over the games where like I really have no opinion, never even considered them this week. When I say skip over them, I'll just briefly talk about them, not to the same level of everything else. But we will get some bets here. Just looking at the board right now, there's probably going to be like a handful today that get locked in. Again, I would say a handful of coin flips. You determine that however you want to determine that, but we will get to all of those. And we'll start here with the Carolina Panthers and the Houston Texans. The Carolina injury report, especially coming out of a bye, is much worse than originally anticipated. They do get some players back. Chandler Zavala on the offensive line. He had that scary neck injury where he had to get carted off a few weeks ago. He's playing. We got Miles Sanders returning from a shoulder injury. I don't think that really matters a whole lot. But the big news was around Brian Burns, who did not practice Friday. He's got an elbow injury. He's expected to play, but not to be at 100%. Frankie Louvu, key figure in the linebacking core for Carolina, expected to play as well. That's huge because Shaq Thompson's out for the year. J.C. Horn still on IR. Xavier Woods at safety is still out. Von Bell is out. Jeremy Chin went on IR as well. So it turned out to be not the greatest injury report for Carolina. I went on Forward Progress on Wednesday. I gave the Panthers as my best bet. The market has moved against me. I think there's some reason that has obviously happened with the way that the injury report shook out, but also Houston's been attracting a lot of money all year long, and I can see why. I get it. I'm just not there yet with the Houston Texans in terms of spotting these types of numbers on the road. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to play the plus 3.5 minus 118. It's going to be a base unit of $80 for me on the Carolina Panthers. So I've somewhat soured on them as the week has gone on, but so has the market as well. And I still think that they are worthy of a play at this number, this point in time. The big news this week was the Carolina play calling change. I don't know with certainty. We don't know anything with certainty when we're betting on the NFL. But in particular in this game, I don't know with certainty how that's going to affect Carolina's offense, which has been very bad. They go from Frank Reich to Thomas Brown. Now, Reich is not a good play caller. He's proven that at this point. He's an old school guy. His wide receivers can't get open in this scheme. I don't know if Thomas Brown's going to be a good play caller, but I know that the likelihood of him being an upgrade over Reich is fairly high. It's a new scheme that they're running, new play calling. The Texans don't have like those analytical splits, not that they use them anyways. I saw the D'Amico Ryans interview this week, and he's not an analytics guy. He's a tape guy. But this is a McVay coaching tree coach. You'll see more pre-snap motion. I think the Carolina offense will look better. Great? Probably not, but better. Carolina, prior to the bye, played Seattle, Minnesota, Detroit, Miami. You play Seattle, Minnesota, Detroit, Miami all in a row, probably going to have some lasting impact on your metrics and how we perceive the team going forwards. I think Houston is fine, honestly. The gap I have between these teams is still fairly significant. I know at the beginning of the year, they were like really, really closely tight packed. Houston's doing fine, especially offensively. But CJ Stroud, where has he done the most damage this year? Against man defenses. Number 3 EPA in the league against man. Carolina plays the 4th highest coverage, zone coverage in the entire league. They play predominantly cover 3. CJ Stroud, again, good splits across the board. Against every defense, I'm not saying Stroud has sucked against one, but this is the worst of his splits, cover 3 defenses, this type of defense. My biggest concern for Carolina is I think Houston can run the ball in this game. They're primarily like this man duo type of run blocking team. Double teams get to the linebacker level. That's an area where Carolina has really struggled so far this season, but I just can't get here as of yet. So Carolina Panthers locked it in for $80. That's going to be play number 1 on the board today. Moving on, Eagles and Commanders. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Market went to 7 earlier in the week, and it's just kind of hung around there at this point. I would imagine like the contrarian bettors will like Washington in this game. Again, I don't look at the public bet splits. I think it's all bullshit, honestly. Again, if I have to get into why sportsbooks win money, it's mostly because people are parlaying and playing teasers that don't make any sense. On the straight bets, they're holding significantly lower. They're making money because they're charging you a vig, not necessarily because, everyone's betting the same sides or whatever. But that's a story for another day. Total, interestingly enough, came down, went a little bit lower than 44. We're on the cusp of me actually liking the over in this game. It's not quite there yet. I guess I say on the cusp, but it would still need a significant move at any of these market numbers. So it's going to end up being a pass for me in this game altogether. It's a tough offensive matchup for Washington. I mean, the Eagles' number 4 pressure rate in the league. Sam Howell's EPA per play against pressure is minus 0.64. It's an atrocity, basically. The Washington offensive numbers are probably inflated too. They've played Arizona. They've played Denver. They've played the Bears, the Giants as well last week. I mean, technically the Giants have had a below average defense. So like all these things, I don't really know how they had the performance they did against the Eagles first time around. We'll see if they can replicate that. Ultimately, I do think Philly will score. Yeah, Jalen Hurts is playing a little bit banged up, but He has above average EPA numbers against all defenses this year. The Commanders' defense just really hasn't been good for the most part. So I think this is a fair number, honestly. And there's not a whole lot more to say about that. As a reminder, if you do enjoy the content here on Pizza Buffet Sunday morning, just make sure you smash that like button down below. Helps people find our content in real time. Allows me to keep doing this forever, essentially. If we get the views, we get the likes, I keep going for a long period of time. All right, next game. More of an opinion on this one. Rams and Cowboys. Load up the market here. Quick refresh. Okay, so yesterday there was a market move towards Dallas. I'll be honest, unexpected for me. I didn't actually think we were going to see sevens in this game. Widely available, some 7 minus 110 right now. Total 45.5, 46 range type of scenario. I'm going to play the Rams for $112 to win 100. Standard unit play on the LA Rams. All right, let's get this out of the way. You see this right here next to me. I'm a Cowboys fan. For those who don't know, I'm wearing a Seattle Kraken hat, but I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. This is the team I root for. I know there's a lot of stock being put into how is this Rams O-line going to hold up against the Cowboys defensive front. And I think there's validity to that. We still don't know if Rob Havenstein's going to play the right tackle for the Rams. He tweaked his calf this week in practice. That would be somewhat of a disastrous injury for the Rams, which I'm kind of factoring in as a 50-50 into my number right now. But it's not the Rams that have to win the game by 8 points to cover a spread. It's the Rams that have to stay within 7 to cover a spread. To me, as a Cowboys fan, one thing that I've picked up on, which is very much reflected in the numbers as well, so it's like an eye test meets analytics type of situation, is how opposing teams play Dak and his success against those types of defenses. So for one, when Dak has gone up against man this year, he's been very, very good. And if you look at his EPA per play against man defense, it's second in the league. Against cover one, which is basically man with a safety floating over the middle of the field, he's fifth, top 5 in all those. But when he's gone up against zone, number 22. His turnover-worthy plays increase a lot. It's almost like he sets his mind up before he's going to make the throw and then just throws it. And a lot of times, if your zone defender is right there, that's going to be a problem. The Rams play man at a very low rate, 4th lowest in the league. It's predominantly a zone defense. On top of that, where Dak has had a lot of success this year, when teams blitz him. Top 5 in the league, EPA per play. When teams blitz, send extra defenders. The Rams don't do that. They play very safe and soft. They blitz at the 3rd lowest rate in the entire league. So I actually have a lot of concerns about the Dallas offense. And also, since they've gone back to being like more of a conservative offense, this is not an offense that's very good on early downs. A lot of their successes come on 3rd down. Cleve TA talks about it on the Monday show here on Forward Progress a lot. But the repeatability, like you're more likely to want to back an offense that's consistently having success on early downs than one that's struggling on early downs and has to make up for it on 3rd down. That's less repeatable than the former. Even further to this, Dallas hasn't fixed their red zone issues yet. They're 27th in the league in scoring touchdowns in the red zone. They get in the red zone, they put it into the end zone 39% of the time. That's low. So again, it's more anti-Dallas offense. I don't think the Rams are going to have like this huge offensive performance, but I think they can move the ball. Like all this talk about, Stafford under pressure, his numbers have been terrible this year. Well, I mean, didn't have Cooper Kupp on the field for a lot of that as well. And if you go back historically, the difference with him with Cooper Kupp on and off the field is monumental. Makes a huge difference for this offense. Guys who can win at the line of scrimmage, especially with Trayvon Diggs on IR for the Cowboys. As a Cowboys fan, I'm very concerned about this game. I honestly think the Rams are pretty underrated. They've played a very tough schedule. They've played San Fran. They've played the Bengals. They've played Seattle. They've played Philly. They've had tough games. I'm still not sold on Dallas. As much as this pains me to say it as a fan, I am really not sold on them. I hope I'm wrong. Honestly, I'd rather just lose a bunch of money today and the Cowboys win a game just for my own personal sanity. But I can see this being a game that is very close into the fourth quarter. I'm not betting this game on like the hopes of a backdoor cover. I hate when people say that. Oh, the Rams can, of course, the Rams can backdoor cover. Every underdog can backdoor cover. I'm betting this game because I actually think the Rams can be competitive in this game. 1:00 start, by the way, for that one. Unusual for Cowboys home games. Patriots and Dolphins. Wind, not really a factor here. Like slight wind, 10 to 15 miles an hour. You might get some gusts higher than that. Looking at the forecast or the radar right now, doesn't look like rain either. This game dealt with like a lot of injury news over the course of the week, whether that was whether Tyreek Hill was going to play or not, which he is. Jalen Ramsey returning out of nowhere, thought it was going to be a season-ending injury for him and he'd be back in the playoffs. No, he'll be on like a limited snap count today for sure. But who else? Javon Holland is out with a concussion. Xavier Howard not expected to play. There's just a lot going on here. And by the way, like the Patriots injury report, I know they've been doing this forever now, but for Christ's sakes, like can we stop listing every player as questionable? Like this is obviously a workaround for the injury report. They're just reporting that the guys are questionable to play. It's getting annoying now. It's been annoying for a long time, but it's getting annoying. Big thing for me in this game, I was somewhat interested in New England. I'm no longer interested in New England at these numbers that are on the board. I didn't bet the game today. It's not like I got a better number. I'm saying pass now. I just never really got around to it just with the scenarios that were working out over the course of the week. The Pats can't get pressure without blitzing. It's a problem. Their defense has gotten a lot healthier in recent weeks. Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones, JC Jackson, like this all improved their secondary, but they still can't generate consistent pressure. It was a little bit better last week against Buffalo, but with Matthew Judon out, they don't have a bona fide pass rusher. They're going to have to blitz. They've had to do that all year. They're the number 2 blitz rate team in the entire league. Tua's destroys the Patriots. I think he's 5-0 career against them now. 60 blitzes this year. Tua has the second best EPA per play in the league. Unless like Miami is saving the pulling the Andy Reid special and saving the big plays for the Germany game against Kansas City next week, I do think that Miami's very likely to score in this game. You want to point to the week 2 game where the Pats did like a decent job against the Dolphins defense, fine. But just remember, context matters. Jalen Waddle got hurt in that game. The Patriots had Matthew Judon. They had Christian Gonzalez. This is a different story. Now I think their offense needs to do something. They might be able to run it with success. They're another like man duo, inside zone type of team. You can succeed against Miami running those types of schemes. So there's a possibility that happens, but I'm not holding my breath. I think the number's fine in the game. And if you got New England early, good number, but it just never manifested itself for me. All right. Gonna have to get the spammers out of the chat really quickly. Okay, just going to go through some really quick questions here, and then I'll get on to the next game here. Do you share your early week plays? So I'll go through my schedule just really quickly here so that everyone knows. I'm betting for a living. My income comes from betting. I'm trying to balance doing betting content with betting myself and not ruining everything I do. By giving out every single thing that I bet at every point, it has very negative consequences for me going forwards. People can profile what I bet for one, but also people just generally knowing my numbers, it doesn't help. What I do over the course of the week, every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here with Clive Bixby. We look ahead to the next week NFL. The openers come up on our screen on Pinnacle. We go through every game. I tell you where I think those are going to move. And honestly, we hit those at like an 80 to 90% clip. If you want to get early closing line value, that's the best spot to do it. The next time I really talk about my stuff is on Wednesdays over the course of the week. And Monday and Tuesday, I don't really want to give away my early opinions. I don't run numbers until Tuesday morning anyways. But Wednesday, you got me on the Best Bet show. We talk through 5 games every single week, plus an actual best bet. I do some other media as well, whether that's You Bet or You Bet, Pat Mayo, Mayo Media Network, and then I'm back here on Sunday. But over the course of the week, that's what I try to do overall. Tyron Smith inactive for the Cowboys. That should have some tangible impact on the game. That's a big one. That's a big one. Do you know your track record for betting for or against Dallas specifically? I do. I can't pull it up in front of me now, but I do. I'll talk a little bit about that on Forward Progress tonight. One way or another, I'm going to have been an idiot for betting against my own team and then losing or look like a hero. But I will talk about that. It is better than any other. Since I've been tracking records and betting NFL professionally or even semi-professionally at one point, I'll say it's better than any record of any other team, for or against. All right. Smash that like button down below. Just hammer it really quickly. 2 seconds. Hit the thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe. Jets and Giants. No strong opinion here either. Numbers kind of moving towards coming off of 3. I don't necessarily think that it will. This total is like, we're down to 34.5 in a lot of spots. I mean, if you still want a 35, Pinnacle's got it for you on the under, if you're willing to bet that. Weather looks like some rain, nothing crazy. Wind doesn't look crazy. Nothing really looks crazy in this game from a weather perspective that would drop this. It's more so the fact that no one believes in either of these offenses. The Jets get DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner back. That is huge for their secondary. The Giants are still on Tyrod, but Andrew Thomas not going to play. Offensive line injuries across the board. All of that matters. I'm not holding out high hopes for Tyrod. I know it's been referenced that he's been like decent against pressure this year, which is actually true. Jets have the highest pressure rate in the entire league. Tyrod has been good when facing pressure, but the one thing about the Jets is they are predominantly, especially with their full complement of weapons on defense, they're predominantly a cover 1 team or man coverage. They don't play a lot of cover 2 or cover 3, and Tyrod has been terrible against man and cover 1, not only this season, but through points in his career as well. I also think the Jets are going to have the advantage of being able to run the ball on the Giants. The Giants' rush defense is pretty bad. The way that the Jets run the ball matches up well with how poorly the Giants defend the run in certain areas of their game. Just at the end of the day here, we do need a Zach Wilson run offense to win by margin. And I mean, he'll show glimpses at time, don't get me wrong, but there's no discernible splits that make Zach Wilson look good against any type of defense. He's 33rd against man, 30th against zone, 30th against cover 1, 26th against cover 2, 34th against cover 3. I can go on through like even lesser played defenses, whether it's cover 0 or quarters or whatever, but he just hasn't been good against anything. And typically when you have a game with this low of a total, the underdog is going to be a little bit more appealing because it's like a condensed game. How does one team win by margin consistently? So I don't really know what to do with this game. I'm kind of, Connor says like I laid 2.5 minus 115. You got a great number. We're -3 minus 115 right now. You've done your job. So yeah, like at that point, you just sit back and you just hope that the good numbers pan out over time, which they will. And that's it. Another game I'm going to go over briefly and not spend too much time on. Falcons and Titans. Little bit of Titans money this morning. So the market settled in at 2.5. Very low total again here. Man, these are almost borderline insane totals now. I say that, but I don't actually have edges on the over. So it's not really fair for me to say that. But we're seeing totals that we haven't seen in a long time in the NFL. I'm not a huge college football guy. I watch some games here and there, but I'm not on my couch every Saturday watching start to finish. I can't give you strong opinions on certain quarterbacks. The big news here is obviously Ryan Tannehill's out. Will Levis is starting for Tennessee. All I've really seen of Will Levis was in the preseason. Will Levis looks to me like he has a big arm and is going to make plenty of mistakes. He had a lot of turnover-worthy plays in the preseason. He had 19 dropbacks and took 4 sacks. Not great, especially against an Atlanta defense that's been able to generate a little bit more pressure this year. So, I don't know. He's too much of an unknown commodity for me overall. Atlanta, I always go back and forth with, right? Because they don't really win by margin. You know, they've had games this year where they've been like in this type of favorite range and they win, but they don't cover. I think the Houston game comes to mind as an example. But Desmond Ritter's getting a little bit better. His EPA per play numbers are not showing that because he's still turning it over a bunch. But success rate wise, it's been a lot better. They've been able to move the chains between the 20s. They just bogged down in the red zone. Last week, they had Desmond Ridder fumble out the back of the end zone, running it in. They had a turnover at the 1 yard line. Like, these are not super repeatable going forwards. Don't really have a strong opinion because I don't know how to value Will Levis, but it would be Falcons or nothing for me at this point. Other injury news to report. Rob Havenstein inactive, so that kind of like balances out the Tyron Smith thing. Maybe actually a little bit worse. That's a big one. Hurts the Rams offensive line quite a bit on that side. Brian Burns and Frankie Louvu, active for the Carolina Panthers. And Dead Game points out the Falcons didn't cover the closing line against the Packers either, which I believe is correct. This is like Army-Navy game. Yeah, I mean, this is like same total. They're going down and down and down. I see some other Juventus comments and stuff like that. This is soccer, not a soccer chat or not an NHL chat. We'll keep it to NFL as we go through the rest of the board here. Still in the 1 o'clock games. 9 1 o'clock games today. What is Scott Hansen going to do? Scott Hansen, right? Yeah, I incorrectly said Chris Hansen earlier this week. One more injury. So this is secondary injuries for Jacksonville. Tyson Campbell, Andre Sisco out for the Jags. They matter. Or a lot of them coming in hot and heavy. Jair Alexander, Devondre Campbell, Luke Musgrave, and Josh Myers active. All right, might as well lock in the play really quickly here with that news available before we get any sort of movement on the game due to actives and inactives. It's going to be a small bet on the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be $60 on the money line to win 61.80. Very divisive game this week. I'm not here to like tell you I know every sharp bettor in the world. I don't. You know, I deal with certain people on a weekly basis. We share opinions on games because we're looking for like the best numbers possible in market as well. And sometimes when there's like opposition, we don't want to pay the sportsbook a vig. So we basically cross with each other. This is a game where this year I've probably seen, what's the best way to word this? I've seen everyone that I know have an opinion on this game. And it seems to be like very split, including colleagues of mine. Pizza Man versus German Horseshoe on this game. Me and Suma, opposite sides. There's a lot to break down. Weather-wise, it's cold. Not extreme cold. I don't think weather is going to have a significant impact on the game. I saw some stuff on Twitter this morning about this being a bad weather game. I don't see it. From contacts we have, doesn't seem like it might rain like a little bit but it's not extremely cold. Green Bay, we just got the updated injury report there. We know who's in and out. But I think Minnesota is a lot better than Green Bay. Let me get this out of the way first. I think the Vikings are a better team than the Packers. One way that I like to handicap the NFL or bet the NFL, that people have their own styles, and that's totally fine, right? Some people are power ratings driven. This team has this rating, this team has this rating, add in home field, compare them, whatever. That's not what I do. The way that I run my models is I play the teams head to head against one another, because I do believe in styles for this game, for the NFL. Glass half empty versus glass half full for Green Bay, I guess. The Packers have been really disappointing. They lost to the Raiders. They lost to the Broncos. I know that both games were on the road, but those are two bottom 10 NFL teams. I get it. I understand that. But they've played a lot of close games this year that ultimately, they're 2-4 right now. That could easily be 4-2, could be whatever. They've been mired in a lot of close games. The thing for me about this game in particular, and maybe I'm an idiot. We can clip this at some point. Maybe I'm just a complete asshat for putting any sort of faith into Jordan Love. And that's entirely possible. But the Vikings blitz at by far the highest rate in the entire league. When I say by far, they're blitzing at about a 58% rate. The next highest team in the league is 36%. This is the Brian Flores defense. It's blitz heavy. It's a lot of cover two. He's not going to change. This is the defense that they run against everyone. Jordan Love has been blitzed 54 times this year. He's managed a 0.35 EPA per play. That's the third best mark in the entire league. Consider the offensive injuries that they've had as well, especially at the receiving core early in the year. And that's really impressive. Now, it's a small sample. Will that continue forwards? I would say probably not at that rate, but he's shown that the blitz doesn't bother him. Cover two, Minnesota, the second highest rate of cover two in the league. Jordan Love splits across the board. There's only one defense in the entire league that he has a positive EPA per play against, and that's cover two. I actually think this is a good matchup for the Packers offense. And whether or not Minnesota's offense is fixed, I don't know. Because we get them off of this extremely impressive performance against San Francisco. No Justin Jefferson? Okay, no problem. Jordan Addison, huge game. Steals an interception away and takes it for a touchdown. That has a massive impact on the game, which was basically a super lucky play, if we're calling it out for what it is. They're 2 weeks removed from not being able to move the ball on the Bears defense. They had 220 yards in that game against Chicago. So where are we with the Vikings offense? I'd say that we're overrating them, and they're somewhere in the middle of the last 2 weeks. I think the Packers should be a small favorite in this game. This is the infamous Sharp Clark game, I guess, where he said Minnesota should be favored by 4. I know people who love Minnesota in this game. Okay. We'll move on to the next game here. I'm just going to answer this. It very likely is a troll job anyways, but it might not be. I'm confused how you make your living gambling and bet $80, $60 units. I'm obviously dumb. Can you explain that? Yeah, I'm just doing that for purposes of this show. I'm actually not betting this stuff on Sunday mornings. I make that explicitly clear to people as well. This is a show designed to, if I hadn't bet anything, this is what I would currently bet at this point, but these are not my actual bets. I'm not going to disclose what the actual bet sizes are, but they're significantly larger than that. I'm not betting $80 unit. No offense to anyone who does. Totally fine. Actually, I encourage you to bet smaller units if that's your bankroll. Please, but I'm not betting Sunday morning $100, $60 units. It's just for frame of reference for other people. All right, into the 4 o'clock games. What do you call a 9? Like they do the octo box on Red Zone. What's the 9 box? Is it? I think it's Nuno. I don't remember what it is. What the hell is Scott Hansen going to say? They're going to throw like 9 up on the screen and then put him in the corner. I don't know. All right. Cleveland and Seattle. 4 o'clock games today. Let's get through these. Markets just keeps moving out towards Seattle. I kind of agree with that, but like just in the dead range now of I don't know what to do here. You may have heard me earlier in the week talk about the under in this game and liking it. A little bit of a different number at that point. I mean, this is a borderline playable under. I'm not gonna put it in there, but like it's right on the cusp. This Pinnacle price under 38.5 minus 107. It's like a cent away or whatever. Offenses, this is the game where I think offenses go to die, honestly, but particularly Cleveland's. I don't know how Cleveland's going to move the ball. Famous last words, and then maybe they'll score like 39 like they did against the Colts last week. No, I think it's a different story. The Seahawks have a great run defense. Number 1 in the league in terms of success rate. I think Jerome Ford's probably going to play today. I honestly don't even care. It's like still a big downgrade from Chubb to Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt in the running game. But the way that Cleveland runs their offense is just not conducive, at least to moving the ball on the ground against the Seattle Seahawks run defense, which has been absurdly good at defending inside and outside zone runs, which is the predominant running style for the Cleveland offense. Absurdly good. The Seattle defense, zone defense, highest rate of zone coverage in the entire league. Who is the worst quarterback against zone coverage in the league? It's PJ Walker. So where are the Cleveland points coming from? I don't know. I just don't think they can do it consistently. I talked about this on last week's show. I'll reiterate it. But if you go back 1 decade, last decade in the NFL, you take every quarterback that's had at least 100 dropbacks in the NFL over the last decade. There's 135 of them. Where does PJ Walker rank in success rate? He ranks 134th, ahead of one quarterback. The other quarterback behind him was Jimmy Clausen, by the way. I just don't see Cleveland moving the ball. Now, the issue I have with Seattle and why I'm not rushing to lay the number here, although I still think it's like a Seattle or nothing type of game, Cleveland plays a ton of man coverage, the most in the league. They're the number 1 man defense in the entire league. They do it very successfully for the most part. Geno Smith, EPA per play against zone, 5th in the league. Against man, 35th. Now, he hasn't been quite that bad over the course of his career. He's going to have both receivers playing today from the looks of things. But I kind of see this just being a slogfest type of game. You know what? Let's just do it. It's on the cusp. We're going half unit, $50, under 38.5 minus 107. And then just pray for no pick sixes or defensive touchdowns like last week, where there was like a million huge defensive plays in the Browns-Colts game. All right, on to the next one. Chiefs and Broncos. You've by now probably seen the images from Denver this morning. The Nana box. David, that's what we're going with? The Nana box. All right. Rob said, let's ride. Basically, at this point. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, again, it's a show about if I had not bet anything, what would I be betting right now? I would bet this under. Like if it was a cent off of my actual price, I would want the action and bet the under. So we're going for a half unit. KC Denver. You've seen the pictures this morning. Denver, all the snow. It's expected to be cleared by game time. It's going to be cold though. Game's going to be played. I'll for all the American followers, I'll give out Fahrenheits because it's the NFL, American football. Temperature is going to be played in the 20s in this game. It's cold. Very cold. That has a little tangible impact on the total, but winds seem to be pretty light, at least by game time. Most of the snow has fallen. should be gone. I don't think we're seeing any additional weather impacts by this. I want to say this line has moved like a little bit too far, but it's not enough for me to play back on Kansas City. I get why someone would like Denver. I honestly do. As bad as they are, getting a touchdown at home in the NFL, it's hard to win by margin on the road. It really is. I actually think that there's a very underrated injury in this game for the Chiefs defense. It's Nick Bolton, their middle linebacker, who's gone on IR with a wrist injury, dislocated wrist or whatever. Typically speaking, we don't think of like middle linebackers as players who are going to have a substantial impact to the spread. I'm not saying it's substantial, but I'm saying it's probably, the market probably thinks it's nothing, whereas I think it's something. Don't really want to get into the reasons why, but at this point, maybe we've corrected like a little bit too much here. I mean, I guess if there's a way to slow down Mahomes, you play as much cover 3 as possible. It's the only defense where he's not top 10 in EPA per play this season. I think the same last year as well. Denver plays a lot of cover 3. Maybe the Denver Broncos defense is actually a little bit underrated right now. I would say actually it almost certainly is, with all the players they've gotten back in recent weeks. Justin Simmons, Brandon Browning, Josie Jewell. But now I think we're in the range of like, this is fine to, if anything, play back the other way. And nothing much more that I'm really interested in this game, or have been for the majority of the week. Cincy and San Fran. Okay, again, this is a show about like, what will we play now? Forget about the lead up to this and like, will Brock Purdy play? Won't he play or whatever? It's what will we play now type of situation. I'm going to play the Bengals for a small play. This is probably like my quote unquote square play of the day. And we'll go with a half unit as well on the 4.5 minus 110. There's a little bit of guesswork involved in this, right? Like, what the hell are the what are the Bengals? Like, if I'm running season-long numbers, I'm almost certainly not playing the Bengals in this game because they haven't been very good this season. But they just had a bye week for Joe Burrow to get full. They're like pretty much fully healthy, with the exception of maybe who's missing for them. Akeem Davis-Gaither. That's it. Strong side linebacker, edge rusher, whatever. The likelihood that the Bengals, in my opinion, come out of their bye week and are much closer to the preseason expectation of what we thought they were is high. It's high. Now, I don't like the Bengals defense. I think there's some scenarios here where the 49ers just run the ball down their throats in a lot of instances today, even without Trent Williams. There are scenarios here. But yeah, I can't, like, I think Cincy's just really live in this spot. It's more of like a gut feeling type of pick. I've ran this game in like a million different ways possible. Full season long numbers, half, preseason expectation. Like, it's really, really tough to understand what the Bengals are going to be today. I'm not going to point to the ATS numbers for Joe Burrow as a dog or dog of 3.5 plus or whatever. I mean, it's nice to get a good quarterback in that range, but ultimately I'm not here yet. I still think the 49ers are overvalued with the injuries to Williams and Debo. And they're slowly coming down to earth. Who knows? Maybe this could just be one of those games where they've hit the lowest that they have in market. I don't think that they have yet. I'm willing to take a shot here with the Bengals. One more time, I'd ask everyone, if you haven't liked the stream yet, just make sure you smash that like below. We got 2 more games to get to on today's slate and some brief thoughts for Monday Night Football. Let's pull it up here. Ravens and Cardinals. I'm going to gloss over this game. It's going to be 30 seconds. At this price, it's Cardinals or nothing. Do I want them? No. For some reason or another, Lamar Jackson has been like league average when he hasn't faced pressure this year. I don't get it. Part of that is drops. There's a lot to do with that. So like, yeah, the Cardinals don't get pressure, but Lamar, for some reason or another, hasn't exploited that regularly. Baltimore plays a lot of cover one, a lot of man. These are the types of defenses Josh Dobbs has had some success against this season because of his ability to scramble for yardage predominantly. There's a massive gap between these two teams, but that's reflected in the line. No strong opinion here. If anything, I'm taking Arizona, but just don't really want a piece of that and never really considered that over the course of this week. Final game, Bears and Chargers. So this is like a little bit of cheating if I go ahead and play the Pinnacle line. It's off market. Pinnacle does have the best price in market on the Bears. At plus 10, minus 110, the Bears are a play. They are. Don't buy 9.5 to 10 or anything like that. There was a people were betting the Chargers this morning like they knew what the final score was in the game. And listen, I understand the reasons. Like we're talking buy low, sell high. The Chargers are probably like at their lowest. And is it really fair because they've played the Chiefs and the Cowboys back-to-back weeks, good teams? The Bears, do we know what Bagent, whatever the hell you want to call him, do we know what he is? No, he's just like very efficient, 162 yards on 29 passes last week, no turnover-worthy plays, whatever. But now we're getting to the point where like the Chargers really have to win by margin. They don't have an explosive downfield threat anymore with Mike Williams on IR. Josh Palmer like really banged up. Quentin Johnson has not shown us anything so far this year. It's a big number. It really is. And like it's pure numbers play. Again, a very wide range on what we can get out of the quarterback position for T-Bag, for our boy T-Bag with the Chicago Bears. But it is what it is. I am going to lock it in. I know it's unfair, but you know what? I've been doing this for 5 years now. It's always been Pinnacle lines, sharp sportsbook lines. It is a sharp sportsbook line. We're going half unit on the Bears plus 10, minus 110. If you don't have it, wait for it. If you're in Ontario and you don't have a Pinnacle account, use code HAMMER, sign up, and go bet it. I mean, when I say go bet it, I actually don't even mean that. I really do think that I'm coin flipping, but I got to trust my numbers at one way or another. Final game is Monday Night Football. And the last day or so, Raiders taking on a little bit of money. So this is a very interesting handicap, Raiders and Lions, because the Lions are obviously significantly better than the Raiders everywhere. If you look at just the Raiders' efficiency numbers, they stink across the board. Offensively, defensively, success rate, EPA, whatever metric you want to use, they're bad. Now, you have to back some of that out on offense because Jimmy G has not been healthy for some of these games. We got an Aiden O'Sullivan game earlier in the year. I saw some Brian Hoyer. So a little bit misleading. But overall, the one thing that the Raiders do every single week is condense the game. It's kind of what the Patriots do as well. They condense the game. There's tons of possession. Opposite of that. There's barely any possessions in these games because what the Raiders are going to do is they are going to sit back and they're going to say, move the ball downfield on us methodically. Run the ball if you want. Take your 4-yard passes. And they're going to say, let's see if you can score in the red zone. And that's ultimately a lot of what these Raiders games come down to. You get a lot of these drives by opposing teams, 7, 8, 9 minutes that result in a field goal or nothing because they go for it on 4th down. I don't think that's sustainable, but when you're getting 8.5 points, it's kind of appealing when you know that there's going to be fewer possessions in the game overall. I think the Lions are way better than the Raiders. Bounce back spot? Absolutely. They're nowhere near as bad as they looked against the Ravens last week. I bet the Ravens on this stream. I gave you the reasons why a week ago, but that was a horrible stylistic mismatch for their team. This one is not. The Raiders don't get pressure. Jared Goff has a very solid 0.3 EPA per play with a clean pocket, 7th in the league. I see this as a game that kind of comes in right around this number. But ultimately, it does make, even though the Raiders suck, it makes them appealing because of their ability to condense the game. Raiders and under, very small edges for me for this game in particular. That's a wrap for all the games today. I'll go to the My Pick section on Betstamp, pull them up on screen, do a quick refresh. Again, like last week on the right, 3-0. I don't expect that to happen. Don't bet me because I'm hot or anything like that. Just understand you're betting into high limits right now. And the likelihood that you're betting with an edge at this point is almost zero. So bet responsibly. Very important. Don't listen to anyone who's going to come out on Twitter 20 minutes from now, tell you about some sort of lock that they have. It's an efficient market, people. Rams +7, -112 for a full unit. The second biggest play is Carolina +3.5, -118, -115. Better price now. Houston money in market every week. I somewhat get it. I just can't get there. And then a bunch of smaller plays. Playing Green Bay on the money line. Got a little bit of CLV here. Moved to -104. Adjust accordingly. Maybe drop that down to $50. Under Seattle, Cleveland. Cincy +4.5, -110. Bears +10, -110. So we got 6 plays going for us today on the card. So I'll again, in the interest of full transparency, I didn't bet any props this week because typically a lot of what I do is a prop Saturday session. Had a very busy Saturday yesterday. Couldn't get around to it. So no, I can't give out any TD props that I like today because I actually literally do not have any today. Today, I'm very much just tied to the major market bets that I've made. Who would you take in a pick'em pool in the Atlanta -2.5, Tennessee? I would take Atlanta at that price. I tease Chargers down. You can't lay that many points at the Chargers defense. At this point, I wouldn't tease Chargers down anymore, but at a previous number, sure. Unofficial first TD prop. All right, so you put me on the spot with an unofficial first TD prop. Let's go with DJ Chark. Adam Thielen's been the go-to guy there. Might as well cheer for something that I want to happen. DJ Chark. Survivor Rob, Baltimore, LA Chargers, Detroit. Which would you choose? I don't like getting into this at this point in the year now because it's so dependent on your own specific pool. How many people are left? What's the availability of certain teams? Personally, I did end up using the most Chargers this week in remaining entries, but it's pool dependent. So very hard for me to give a specific answer on that. Where are you getting the data on QBs versus different coverages? I get my data through FTN as part of it, at least a bulk majority of it. And then we compare it with stuff that we grade ourselves. But it is a pretty expensive package. I think it's totally worth it, but you have to be a pretty serious bettor to get it. So for FTN. When are you going on doing an NHL video? Honestly, no time soon. Just being completely honest, I do not have the time to do NHL content right now. I barely have the time to bet NHL now, let alone do NHL content as well. So yeah. So like, here's the problem with this. I hate statements like this. Like, these are the ones that drive me nuts. Raiders +7.5 feels like an auto bet. Over 90% of bets and dollars is on the Lions spread, and the line moved towards the Raiders. So like, the market is the market now. Now Raiders 7.5. Like, don't wait for the move to happen so that you can be on the same side as the people who bet the Raiders. Like, people bet the Raiders at 8.5 and like them at that number. And now no one's betting the Raiders at 7.5, but you're going to do it to mimic someone else. Like, just don't do that. It's bad. Like, reverse line movement is the biggest horse shit that's ever been perpetrated on the betting industry and continues to be perpetrated. It's a joke. Last week, I know some like bet against the public really worked last week. People want to remind me of how that worked week 1 to 6 this year. A lot of silence week 1 to 6 when public bettors were winning. Don't do that stuff, guys. Please. The betting splits do not matter. They do not matter. If you do not believe me, I consulted for sportsbooks before with trading teams. Listen to some of the content we do on Circles Off. It's not just my opinion. We're getting industry experts on that are talking about this stuff. The reason it's being shoved down your throat on a weekly basis is because there are so many people involved in the betting space now that do not fucking have a clue. Remember that. 98% of bettors are going to lose in the long run. Most of the people that you're following on Twitter are probably losing. They're just not being transparent about it. Please. You want to give yourself an edge in the NFL? Bet earlier on in the week. Track everything you do. Understand why markets move. And you'll do a great job. Rather than waiting till Sunday morning and betting based off of where everyone else has already bet. And sorry, Diehard Sports Network, don't mean to make an example of you. That kind of stuff just really, really triggers me. Don't even look at it. It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. On top of that, you're getting your betting splits from recreational sports books that don't even take sharp action. It's useless. It's meaningless. Again, if you want a full explanation as to why, head on over to the Circles Off YouTube channel. I've covered this topic many times before. There's a very short video on there, 6-7 minutes, about why this stuff doesn't matter. All right. I know there's if there was ever one tweet or comment in a chat that could have an impact where steam would actually come out of my ears, this would be the one. That would be the one. Forget about it. Anyways. In fact, I just will never want to see a comment from that person ever again. All right. Everyone, if you're in Ontario and you want to use a real sports book with very good competitive odds, use Pinnacle. Use code HAMMER if you do want to sign up. I've been betting with Pinnacle for ages now. Highly recommend them to everyone, especially for those of you who want to win at betting and be price sensitive in doing so. If you're not subscribed here on Forward Progress, smash that subscribe button down below. Tons of content throughout the week, including me back here tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time with Clyde Bixby. You don't have to check out that show in real time, but I will say, if you're watching it on Monday morning, a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about on Sunday night is going to move. Maybe it's just like our group that's moving it, whatever. But there is more of a reason to watch it on Sunday night than on Monday. If you can't, no problem. Watch it on Monday. You can also get it in podcast form on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts as well. 6 bets today from the stream. I got a lot going on. It's a packed card. Enjoy the NFL, people. Whether we win or lose, we get to bet on this stuff. It makes it so interesting. It makes it fun. But again, play responsibly. For myself, Rob Pizzola, for my producer that nobody ever sees on the show, Jason Cooper, who gets everything all organized. This has been another edition of Pizza Buffet here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network, presented by Pinnacle Sportsbook. Unless you're opposite me, good luck with your bets today. I'll catch everyone again tonight. Peace.